Okay, so if you cut a snake plant leaf into pieces and just shove them straight in soil, there's a decent chance half of them rot on you. I lost 4 cuttings that way back in March before I figured out what I was doing wrong. And it's not the soil's fault, it's almost always about what you do in the first 48 hours before the cutting ever touches dirt or water. By the end of this, you're going to know exactly how to propagate a snake plant both in soil and in water, which one actually gives you a stronger root system, which one's faster, the mistakes that kill most cuttings, and which method fits your specific situation. Let's just get into it. First thing, pick a leaf that's mature, not one of the new little spears coming up from the center. Those are too soft, they don't have enough stored energy. Grab a leaf that's been fully grown for at least a few months, cut it right at the base with clean scissors or a knife, and then cut that leaf into sections about 2 to 3 inches long. Here's the part people skip, keep track of which end was up. Snake plant cuttings only grow roots and new pups from the bottom edge, the end that was closer to the soil. If you plant it upside down, it just sits there. No roots, no growth, nothing. I did this exact thing my first time, waited 6 weeks, pulled it up to check, and the cut end was still smooth. Cut a little notch or angle on the bottom edge so you always know which way is down. Now, before you plant or float anything, let the cutting callus. Set the pieces somewhere dry and out of direct sun for about 2 to 3 days. This is the step that fixes the rot problem I mentioned. Fresh cut leaf tissue is basically an open wound, and if that goes straight into wet soil or water, it's just an invitation for bacteria. Let it dry out and seal over first. You'll see the cut edge go from wet and glossy to kind of dull and slightly shriveled at the very tip. That's what you want? Okay, soil method. Mix regular potting soil with perlite or coarse sand, roughly 50-50. Snake plants hate sitting in wet, dense soil, so drainage is everything here. Stick the calloused end about an inch into the mix, angled edge down obviously, and honestly you can fit several cuttings in one pot as long as they're not touching each other. Water it once, right after planting, then leave it alone. And I mean actually leave it alone. This is where most beginners fail. They keep watering every few days because the soil looks dry, and that's exactly how you rot a cutting that hasn't grown roots yet to even use that water. Water only when the top 2 inches are completely dry, which in most homes ends up being every 2 to 3 weeks. Roots typically start forming around the 4 to 6 week mark in soil, though you won't see them, obviously, they're underground. What you will notice, sometimes around week 8, is a tiny new pup popping up at the base. That's your sign it's rooted and actually working. Full transplant ready size, where you'd move it to its own pot, that's usually 3 to 4 months out. Now, water propagation, this is the one everybody loves because you get to watch the roots happen, which honestly is half the fun. Same cutting prep, same callousing step, don't skip that even for water. Put the calloused end in a jar with maybe an inch and a half of water, just enough to cover the bottom edge. You don't want the whole cutting submerged. Set it somewhere with bright, indirect light. Here's where most people mess up the water method, and this is the thing that separates a cutting that thrives from one that just kind of stalls out. You have to change that water every 5 to 7 days. Not top it off, dump it, and replace it completely. Stagnant water gets low on oxygen and starts growing bacteria and algae, and root tips are actually really sensitive to that. I had a jar I forgot about for almost 3 weeks once. Water went cloudy, and the roots that had started just turned to mush. Total restart. Fresh water, same jar. Roots showed up again in about 3 weeks after that, so it's very recoverable. Just annoying. You'll actually see little root nubs forming at around 3 to 4 weeks in water, which is faster than soil, and that's the main appeal. But, and this is my actual opinion here, not a neutral, both are a valid thing. Water roots are noticeably weaker and more brittle than soil roots. They are adapted to floating in liquid, not pushing through dense material. So when you finally transplant a water-rooted cutting into soil, it goes through this rough adjustment period where a good chunk of those roots die off and get replaced by soil-adapted ones. Sometimes the plant just sits there sulking for a few weeks while that happens. So which one should you actually use? If you've got zero patience and you want to see progress happening, water's more satisfying, you're watching roots grow in a jar, it's genuinely kind of addicting. But if your actual goal is a strong plant that isn't going to struggle through a transplant shock phase, go straight to soil and just trust the process even though you can't see anything for 2 months. That's the honest trade-off: visible progress versus a plant that's stronger from day one. One more thing worth knowing: leaf cuttings. Either method, don't reliably keep the yellow edge variegation if you've got a Laurenti or a Bantel's rainbow-type snake plant. The pups that come up are usually solid green. If having an exact genetic clone with the variegation matters to you, don't do leaf cuttings at all. Divide the plant at the rhizome instead, splitting an existing clump apart with roots already attached. That's a different video, but I wanted to flag it here because I get comments constantly from people confused why their variegated plants' babies came out plain green. It's not a mistake, it's just how the propagation works. Real quick, the 2 other mistakes that get people besides rot in the upside down cutting: 1, using leaf tips instead of full mature leaves. Tips just don't have enough stored energy to push out roots reliably. And 2, low light. Both methods basically stall out in dim rooms. You don't need direct sun. Direct will actually scorch a cutting, but it needs to be bright. If you're trying this, drop a comment with which method you picked, soil or water, and come back and tell me at the 4-week mark what you're seeing, root progress, a stalled cutting, whatever happened. I actually read these and it helps me know what to cover next. Good luck with it.